You have told yourself the story of who you are becoming. You've visualized your desired reality. You believe it's possible. And then your ego whispers doubt. Or your partner says, be realistic. Or life just pushes back. And you fold. You adjust the story. You soften the vision. You tell yourself you're being flexible. And nothing manifests. And if you have started suspecting that conviction is just delusion with better marketing, that holding your vision is just stubbornness dressed up in a spiritual language, your skepticism is not wrong. Most manifestation teaching gives you the what without the how. Just believe harder, it's a simple platitude. But the mechanics underneath belief. The reason some people hold their story through pressure while others collapse. That's not mystical. That's observable. And it's operating whether you understand it or not. This is a pattern that kills many people's manifestations, and probably yours. Not weak desire, not wrong technique. You can't hold your story under pressure. Gone Girl shows exactly how this works. Two people in a brutal story contest, where one falls constantly and one never does. 3 scenes, 3 battles, 3 collapses. And by the end, you'll see why truth doesn't matter if you can't hold it. When you're manifesting, you're holding a story, a version of reality that doesn't exist yet in the external world. Your desired self, your desired outcome, your desired life. But you're not the only one telling stories. Your ego has a story. This won't work. Who are you to have this? People around you have stories. Be realistic. That's not how life works. And the moment they challenge your story, you have a choice: hold or fold. Gone Girl shows exactly what folding looks like. And it starts with a problem most people don't even notice: scattered attention. Nick and Amy Dunn, both broke, both unemployed, marriage under pressure. Nick's been spending money on video games, while Amy cleans up his beer cans. Amy questions the spending. Nick's goal is simple: get her to acknowledge the unfairness, admit that the financial dynamic is unbalanced. But watch where his attention goes. He fires back.
Oh, I see. You can give your parents $879,000 without talking to me. But God forbid I buy a video game without getting your permission.
You are spending a lot.
That's a valid point. Then he pivots.
You don't trust me. You don't trust my judgment. You certainly don't trust my intentions.
What are you talking about?
Now it's about trust. Then he pivots again.
Well, that's the basic tenet of a prenup, isn't it?
Why are you throwing that in my face again?
Because it's easy to throw.
Now it's about a prenup. Nick isn't holding one story. He's venting grievances, spending, trust, prenup, feeling beholden. His attention is scattered across complaints instead of locked on a single frame. Amy has one job: break his position. And she does it with one line.
Nick, I don't get it. I don't get why you're daring me to be someone I don't want to be. The nagging shrew, the controlling bitch. I'm not that person. I'm your wife.
Now watch the change. Nick expected Amy to acknowledge the unfairness, maybe apologize, maybe concede something. Instead, she reframed the entire contest. She didn't address the money. She didn't argue the prenup. She made the conversation about what Nick was turning her into.
I'm sorry. I just don't know how to do this. I've never not had a job. I flipped burgers. I painted houses. I don't...
You'll get another job.
30 seconds. He went from offense to apology. From holding a position to defending himself inside her frame. Nick had facts. The money. The prenup. The imbalance. He expected those facts to win. But his attention was scattered. 4 grievances. No unified story. And when Amy offered one clean emotional frame, you're attacking your wife, his scattered position collapsed into it. This is what you do with your manifestation. You hold a desired reality. Then that comes from your ego, from circumstances, from people around you. And instead of holding one clear story, you start defending, explaining, adjusting. Your attention scatters across why isn't it working, and maybe I should be realistic, and what if they are right? You don't lose because your story is wrong. You lose because you're holding 5 stories instead of one. And whoever challenges you with a single clear frame wins. Because a unified signal always beats a scattered one. Nick had truth. Amy had focus. And focus won. This is Axiom 2. Reality is a story contest. The core principle is simple. You're always in a narrative battle. Your desired reality is a story. Your ego's doubts are a story. Other people's expectations are a story. Society's definition of realistic is a story. And reality doesn't wait which story is true, or moral, or fair. It responds to whichever story is held with the most conviction. Nick had truth. Amy had conviction. Conviction won. But this wasn't a one-time collapse. Nick and his allies folded multiple times in this film, each under different pressure, each with the same result. The marriage argument was pressure from someone close to him. Next, we'll see what happens when the pressure comes from authority, when Amy faces an FBI interrogation with holes in her story, evidence against her, and every reason to adjust. She doesn't. So Nick folded under pressure from someone close to him. His wife reframed the contest, and he abandoned his story in 30 seconds. But what about external pressure? Authority. Evidence that says your story has holes. This is where most people's manifestations die. Not from a partner's doubt, but from reality itself pushing back. The job rejection, the bank account, the doctor's report, the thing that says your story is not true, and I can prove it. Amy faces exactly this, and she demonstrates what holding actually looks like. Amy has returned home claiming she was kidnapped and abused for weeks. She killed her captor, she says, to escape. Detective Bonnie is not buying it. She's in Amy's hospital room with the FBI, looking for holes. Her goal is simple: apply pressure, find inconsistencies, get Amy to sleep. And she has ammunition. The diary allegations don't add up. Amy tried to buy a gun before she disappeared. There are logical gaps in the captivity story. Bonnie pushes.
Amy, we found her diary. It contains many concerning allegations of mental and physical abuse.
Amy holds the victim frame.
Oh, it's the ugly truth. Nick didn't want a baby. He has a temper. We had money problems. But I love him.
Bonnie pushes harder.
Why did you try to buy a gun?
Amy's voice weakens.
I'm sorry, I feel myself fading.
Bonnie keeps going.
If I could just clarify one thing.
Now watch the shift. Amy doesn't adjust her story. She doesn't explain the gun. She doesn't fill the gaps Bonnie found. She attacks.
Case had been left in your deeply incompetent hands. My husband would be on death row, and I'd be tied, still. Spread eagle.
One exchange. That's all it took. The FBI agent steps in.
Ms. Dunn, you've been very brave. We're finished.
Bonnie had evidence. She had logical gaps. She had every reason to expect Amy would sleep under pressure. Amy's story was fabricated. It had holes. By any objective measure, it should have collapsed. It didn't. Because Amy understood something Nick never did. She didn't defend her story. She attacked the challenger's right to question it. She shifted from weak victim to righteous survivor in one sentence. and she made Bonnie's doubt look like incompetence that almost cost Amy her life. Notice the pattern shift. When pressure came, Amy didn't adjust down. She escalated up. Nick softened. Amy did not. Same dynamic as the marriage argument. Pressure meets story, but opposite response, opposite result. This is the mechanic in manifestation. When your ego says this isn't working, you can explain why it should work. You can defend your vision, or you can hold so completely that the doubt becomes irrelevant, not by arguing with it, but by refusing to let it edit your story. Amy's story was a lie, held like truth. Your desired reality is a truth you keep treating like a lie, adjusting it every time something pushes back. Two scenes, same pattern. In the marriage argument, Nick held valid grievances: the money, the prenup, the imbalance. Amy refrained with one emotional line. Nick folded in 30 seconds. In the FBI interrogation, Bonnie held real evidence: tire inconsistencies, the gun purchase, logical gaps. Amy attacked her standing to question. Bonnie backed off in one exchange. So the pattern is this. The story with conviction survives. The story that adjusts under pressure dies. It doesn't matter who has facts. It doesn't matter who's right. When two stories collide, reality doesn't weigh truth. It weighs who holds their frame without flinching. Nick kept adjusting. Amy escalated. Nick explained himself. Amy attacked. Nick scattered his attention across grievances. Amy locked onto one narrative and never let go. This is Axiom 2 operating in real time. Reality is a story contest, and contests aren't won by the best story. They are won by whoever refuses to edit theirs. But here's the question. Why can Amy hold and Nick cannot? This is not random. It's not just Amy is smarter or Nick is weak. There's an origin to this pattern, a reason one person learns to hold their story like their life depends on it, and another learns to fold the moment pressure arrives. Gone Girl shows us exactly where this comes from. Amy holds her story like her survival depends on it. Nick folds the moment pressure arrives. This isn't personality. It's training. Amy learned early that reality is negotiable, that the story you tell doesn't have to match what happened. It just has to be held with conviction. And she learned it from her parents. There's a scene early in the film. Nick and Amy are at a book launch party, the 30th anniversary edition of the amazing Amy children's book series, written by Amy's parents, based on Amy's life. Except it's not her life. They walk along a wall of book posters. Amy stops in front of one. Grade school amazing Amy holding a cello. Amy says,
When I was 10, I quit cello. In the next book, Amazing Amy became a prodigy.
In the next poster, Teen Amazing Amy playing volleyball. Nick asks,
You play volleyball?
I got cut freshman year. She made varsity.
Then Nick questions her about the dog.
Why didn't you have a dog?
She got the dog. Puddles made her more relatable.
Nick says what we are all thinking.
I love your parents, but they really can be assholes. Your parents literally plagiarized your childhood.
Amy's response is the key to understanding everything she does for the rest of the film.
No, they improved upon it, and then peddled it to the masses.
She doesn't say they lied about my childhood. She doesn't say they stole my story. She says they improved upon it. Amy was raised in a household where reality was raw material, where what happened was just a first draft, where the published version, the one that sells, the one people believe, matters more than the original. This is where Amy learned that the stories are contests, not confessions. Her parents took her actual life, the failures, the quitting, the getting caught, and rewrote it. And the rewritten version became more real than the truth. Amazing Amy is who people know. The actual Amy is a footnote. So when Amy frames her ex-boyfriend Tommy for rape, it's not a breakdown. It's the system working as designed. Tommy tells Nick the story later in the film. He dated Amy for a few months. When he broke up with her, she showed up one night with an offer he didn't refuse. Then the cops arrived. Amy had wounds consistent with rape, marks on her wrist as if she had been tied up. Tommy pled down to avoid trial. Sexual assault 1, no jail time. But 8 years later, he's still on the sex offender registry. He can't get a job. He can't get a date. His life is destroyed. Because Amy understood something Tommy didn't. The better story wins. Amazing Amy taught her that reality can be edited. Tommy taught her that a committed fiction beats an uncommitted truth. By the time we met Amy in her marriage to Nick, she's not learning how to hold a story. She's been practicing for 30 years. Nick never had that training, and it shows. So now we've seen the pattern in action. two scenes and two collapses. And we have seen where Amy's conviction comes from. The question for you: why does any of this apply to manifestation? Because you're in the same contest, not against a psychopath, or against your ego, against society's story of what is realistic, against the people who tell you to be practical. And just like Nick, you keep folding. Here's the mechanism underneath this, and the third scene that proves it. If you watch my breakdown of Axiom 1 using everything everywhere all at once, you saw how Evelyn spent 30 years as a piece of someone else's world, reacting to her father's disappointment, to tax deadlines, to her daughter's choices, instead of playing as the author of her own game. Axiom 2 is the next layer, because the game isn't just about recognizing you're in a game. It's about understanding how the game is won. And it's won through a story. Reality is not an objective set of facts waiting to be discovered. Reality is an interpreted experience. An interpretation is controlled by the dominant story. When someone controls the story, the narrative about what's happening, why it's happening, and what it means, they control perception, and perception is reality. This is why Nick lost. He had facts, he had truth, but Amy controlled the story. And the story people believed became the operational reality for the media, for the police, for the public, and eventually for Nick himself. The most powerful position is not having the truth. The most powerful position is authoring the story that people accept as truth. This applies to politics, it applies to relationships, it applies to your internal dialogue, and it applies to manifestation. Picture this. Two knights return from the same battle. Both experience the same events. Knight A says, "We were ambushed by overwhelming forces. Survival was a miracle." Knight B says, "We faced a challenge and adapted. Victory through strategy." Now the bard, the storyteller, must decide which story to tell the kingdom. If he tells Knight A's story, the kingdom believes they are under dire threat. They fortify, they fear, they prepare for the worst. If he tells Knight B's story, the kingdom believes they are strategically superior. They expand. They act from confidence. Both are telling the same facts from the same battle. But they have a different story, which produce a different reality. The bard controls the kingdom's experience of reality. In your life, you had a bard. It's called the narrator, the voice in your head that's constantly telling you what's happening and what it means. When you're manifesting, your desired reality is one story, but your ego, your totalitarian ego, is a part too. It's telling a different story. This won't work. You're not the kind of person who gets this. Be realistic. And whichever part you believe becomes your operational reality. In Axiom 1, we establish that life is a game. You're either a piece being moved by external forces, or you're a player making conscious moves. Axiom 2 tells you how the game is played. The game is won by controlling the story. Nick played the game like a piece, reacting to Amy's moves, adjusting to her frames, defending against her accusations. He was always responding to her story instead of authoring his own. Amy played the game like a player. She wrote her story before it happened, manufactured evidence to support it, and held it with such conviction that reality reorganized around it. The shift from piece to player isn't just about recognizing you're in a game. It's about becoming the author of the story instead of a character in someone else. When you hold a desired reality, you're authoring a story that doesn't yet have evidence. You're telling yourself you're wealthy before the bank account shows it. You're telling yourself you're healthy before the body reflects it. You're telling yourself you're the person who has what you want before you have it. That story will be contested. Your ego will author a counter story. Look at the evidence. Look at your bank account. Look at how long this is taking. The story you're telling is not true. People around you will author counter stories. Be realistic. That's not how life works. You need to accept your situation. Society will author counter stories. People like you don't achieve that. The economy is bad. It's too late. And just like Nick, you'll be tempted to adjust, to soften your story, to accommodate their version. The moment you do, you've handed the pen to someone else. This isn't about being delusional. This isn't about ignoring facts. This is about understanding that in the game of reality creation, the story that's believed becomes operational truth. Amy's story was a lie, but she held it like truth, and it became the reality everyone operated from. Your desired reality is not a lie, it's a future you're calling into the present. But if you can't hold it with the same conviction Amy held her fabrication, you lose the story contest to whoever holds their narrative harder. Usually, that's your ego. Now you might be thinking, this is one movie. You're seeing what you want to see. Fair. If this pattern only showed up in Gonger, it would be interpretation, not mechanics. But this same pattern, conviction beating truth, frame control winning over facts, appears across dozens of films, TV series, historical events, political campaigns, courtrooms, boardrooms, and family arguments. I have documented it. And in time, you'll see it broke down across multiple case studies on this channel. When the same mechanical principle appears across completely different contexts, that's not confirmation bias. That's a law. But you don't have to believe me. Watch the third scene and then test it in your own life. Now that you understand the mechanic, story contests, narrative control, conviction over truth, let's see what happens when Nick faces his final test. The shower scene. He knows everything. He has the truth. And he still loses. This is where the axiom becomes undeniable. Two scenes, two collapses. Nick folded to his wife's refrain in 30 seconds. Amy held against FBI interrogation with evidence stacked against her. But those were warm-ups. The shower scene is the final test. Because this time, Nick has everything. He knows the truth, all of it. Amy is a murderer. She framed him. She fabricated the diary, the pregnancy scare, the kidnapping. She killed Daisy and staged her own rescue. And he still loses. This is where Axiom 2 stops being theory and becomes undeniable. Truth doesn't win story contests. Conviction does. Amy has just returned home, covered in Daisy's blood. The media is calling it a miracle. The kidnapped wife who fought her way back to her husband. Nick knows better, and he wants answers.
You need to tell me exactly what happened.
Take off your clothes. I need to make sure you're not wearing a wire.
She turns on the shower and tells him to get in. They stand face to face under the water. Trickles of pink, Daisy's dried blood, flow from her hair down her neck. Nick states his truth.
You killed someone, Amy. You're a murderer.
Amy doesn't flinch.
I'm a fighter. I fought my way back.
Nick pushes harder.
You killed a guy. You slashed his throat with a box cut.
But Amy refrains.
You went on national television and begged for me to save your life, and I obliged.
This is the moment. Nick has moral authority. He has factual accuracy. He has every reason to walk out and expose her. He declares his intention.
I'm leaving.
Now watch Amy's response. She doesn't argue his facts. She doesn't dispute the murder. She doesn't try to convince him he's wrong. She states the story consequence.
You really think that wounded, raped wife battles her way back to her husband and he deserts her. I'll make sure that no one forgets the pain you caused me.
And after hearing this, Nick debates the truth of this. He's not debating whether she is a murderer. He knows she is. He's debating whether his truth can survive her story. and his response.
I don't want anything to do with your groupies outside. Once they go, I go.
He stays that night. He never leaves. Nick's expectation was clear. Confront Amy with the truth, then walk away with moral authority. But Amy didn't fight on the terrain of truth. She fought on the terrain of history. Wounded wife returns. Husband abandons her. That's the headline. That's what the world will believe. And Nick couldn't hold his truth against the consequence of holding it. Look at the pattern shift. In the marriage argument, Nick went from offense to apology in 30 seconds. Here, he goes from "I'm leaving" to "as soon as they go, I go" in one exchange. Same mechanic, same collapse, full knowledge, and he still folded. Because truth without conviction to face consequences is just a story you used to believe. The film ends with Nick and Amy on television, a united front, announcing they are expecting a child. Nick says the words,
We're honest with each other. We're partners in crime.
partners in crime. He's not wrong. They have agreed to co-author a story neither believes. Amy doesn't love Nick. Nick doesn't love Amy. The pregnancy was manufactured from stolen samples. The whole marriage is a performance. But the story holds, because both of them are now holding it. This is where Gone Girl leaves us, two people in prison in a shared fiction. Not because the truth wasn't available, not because Nick didn't know reality, but because knowing reality isn't the same as holding your story about it. Nick had truth 3 times: the marriage argument, the media aftermath, the shower confrontation, and he folded in all of them. Amy had lies, fabricated evidence, manufactured wounds, a story held together by nothing but her conviction. She won. The universe didn't wait who was good. It didn't wait who was honest. It didn't wait who deserved to win. It waited who held their story without flinching. And that's the mechanic that's operating in your manifestation right now. You have a desired reality, a version of yourself you're trying to step into. Maybe it's financial freedom, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a career shift, maybe it's just becoming someone who doesn't feel stuck anymore. You've told yourself this story, you've visualized it. You've affirmed it. You believe it's possible. And then pressure arrives. Your ego whispers, look at your bank account. Look at how long this has been taking. If it was going to work, wouldn't you have seen something by now? And you adjust. You soften the vision. You tell yourself you're being realistic. You just fold it, just like Nick. Or maybe it's not your ego, maybe it's the people around you. Your partner says, I just don't want you to get hurt. Maybe you should have a backup plan. Your family says, that's a nice dream, but you have responsibilities. Your friends say, I knew someone who tried that. It didn't work. And you feel the story start to wobble. You don't abandon it completely, but you start accommodating their version. You add caveats. You lower the stakes. You prepare for the failure they are predicting. You just handed them the pen. Or maybe it's not people. Maybe it's circumstances. The application gets rejected. The client says no. The body doesn't cooperate. The timeline stretches longer than you expected. And you hear yourself say, maybe this isn't meant to be. Maybe I'm not the kind of person who gets this. Maybe I should accept what I have. You just rewrote your story to match the feedback. You let the external edit the internal. Here's what you don't see. You're doing what Nick did, multiple times per day. You have a story, your desired reality, and the moment something challenges it, you adjust, you explain, you defend, you accommodate. You think you're being flexible, mature, grounded, but in reality, you are folding. And the worst part, you're not even folding to a better story. You're folding to your ego's story, to society's story, to other people's story about what's possible for you. Nick didn't fold to truth. He folded to Amy's fabrication, a story she made up and held with more conviction than he held his facts. Your ego's story isn't true either. You're not enough. It's too late. People like you don't get this. Those aren't facts. They are narratives. Fabrications with conviction behind them. And you keep letting them win. Think about the last week. How many times did you soften your desired reality because something pushed back? How many times did you say maybe when you meant yes? How many times you lowered your expectation to match what seemed realistic? How many times did you edit your story to make other people comfortable? Every single time. You were Nick in that argument, Nick in that shower, holding something true, then letting it go the moment pressure arrived. You're not failing at manifestation because you don't believe enough. You're not failing because you don't have the right technique. You're not failing because the universe isn't listening. You're failing because you're in a story contest, and you keep losing. Your ego holds its story like Amy held hers. Absolute conviction. No adjustment. No accommodation. And every time you fall to it, you manifest its reality instead of yours. The question isn't whether your desired reality is true or possible. The question is whether you can hold it the way Amy held a lie. without flinching when pressure comes. So far, you have not. But now you see the pattern. Now you know what you're actually doing. So how do you stop folding? Not by believing harder, not by repeating more affirmations, not by ignoring the pressure and pretending it doesn't exist. You stop folding by recognizing the contest for what it is and choosing to hold anyway. The first step is identify the competing stories. Right now, you have a desired reality. You also have counter stories running constantly. Your ego's story. This is taking too long. Nothing's changing. You should prepare for disappointment. Other people's stories. Be realistic. Have a backup plan. That's not how life works. Society's stories. People like you don't get that. The economy is bad. It's too late. These aren't facts. They are narratives. And they only win if you let them edit yours. The first step is simply seeing them as stories. Not as truth. Not as reality. Not as the way things are. Just stories, competing for your conviction. Step number 2. Stop arguing with the counter stories. Nick's mistake wasn't that he faced pressure. His mistake was that he engaged with Amy's frames. He argued. He defended. He explained. And in doing so, he gave her story weight. When your ego says, this isn't working, you don't need to prove it wrong. You don't need to list evidence that it is working. You don't need to debate. You need to hold your story without engaging the challenger. Amy didn't argue with Bonnie's evidence. She didn't explain the gaps in her story. She attacked Bonnie's standing to question her, then returned to her narrative as if the challenge never happened. You don't need to attack your ego, but you do need to stop treating its story as worthy of debate. It's not a prosecutor with evidence. It's a competing author with a draft. You don't owe it a response. Step number 3. Hold through the pressure, not around it. The temptation is to adjust your story so the pressure stops. Soften the vision. Lower the expectation. Add caveats. This is folding with extra steps. Holding doesn't mean the pressure disappears. It means you maintain your narrative while the pressure exists. Amy didn't wait until the FBI left to believe her story. She believed it while they were questioning her. Your desired reality will be challenged. That's not a sign it's wrong. That's the story contest in action. The challenge is the test, not the verdict. Final step, number 4. Conviction is a practice, not a feeling. You're not going to feel certain every day. You're not going to wake up with unshakable confidence in your desired reality. Some days, the counter stories will feel louder than yours. Hold anyway. Conviction is not an emotion you wait for. It's a choice you make, repeatedly, to maintain your narrative regardless of internal weather. Amy didn't feel confident when DC became obsessive and dangerous. She adapted tactically, but she never abandoned the story. You're going to have days where your ego's story feels more true than yours. Hold anyway. The feeling follows the holding, not the other way around. Here's your manifestation exercise for the next 24 hours. Catch yourself adjusting. Every time you soften your desired reality, in conversation, in your head, in your actions, notice it. Don't judge it, just notice. I was about to say I want X, but I said maybe X instead. I was holding my vision, then I added but we'll see to make it safer. I was about to take action toward my desired reality. Then I hesitated because someone might think it's unrealistic. Write it down. Every adjustment, every softening, every fold. At the end of 24 hours, look at the list. That's your map of where you're losing the story contest. That's where your ego, other people, and society are editing your draft. You don't need to fix anything yet. You just need to see it. Because you can't hold a story you don't know you are abandoning. You don't need to believe in manifestation for this to work. You just need to observe. That's not fate, that's data. Gone Girl is not a comfortable film. Amy is not a comfortable character. And some of you are probably thinking, so the lesson is that psychopaths win. No. The lesson is that the mechanic is amoral. Reality doesn't weigh who's good or bad. It doesn't weigh who deserves to win. It weighs conviction. It weighs who holds their story without flinching. Amy used this mechanic to destroy people and herself. You can use the same mechanic to build the life you actually want. The Axiom doesn't care. It operates the same way for everyone. This is what separates this framework from most manifestation teaching. It's not about being positive. It's not about deserving your desire. It's not about the universe rewarding good people. It's mechanics, 46 axioms, 29 advanced principles, all interconnected, all operating whether you understand them or not. Axiom 2, reality is a story contest, doesn't exist in isolation. It's built on Axiom 1. It connects to axioms about frequency, about state, about the ego's tactics, about the lag period between holding and manifestation. When you see one axiom clearly, you start seeing how they all fit together, how the whole system operates. And once you see the system, you stop being a piece inside it and start becoming a player who can use it. Today you learned while your manifestation keeps collapsing under pressure. You learned that you're in a story contest, against your ego, against people around you, against society, and you've been folding. But there's a question we haven't answered. Why are you in this contest in the first place? Why is life structured as a game with challenges designed to make you forget you are in control? That's Axiom 1. Life is a game, a mental game, and the challenges are designed to trap you in reaction, to make you a piece instead of a player. Evelyn Wang from Everything Everywhere All at Once spent 30 years as a piece on someone else's board, reacting to her father's disappointment, reacting to tax deadlines, reacting to her daughter's choices, never aftering, always responding. If you feel like life keeps happening to you instead of through you, if you keep reacting to circumstances instead of creating from a chosen state, that video will show you exactly how that trap works and how Evelyn finally escaped it. The Story Audit. 24 hours. Catch yourself adjusting. That's where you start.